Hello there. These are a series of shots I took over the last couple of days flying through the areas of harvested and about to be planted bits of woodland. It's mostly for my record, but I thought you'd also like to see it as lairds and ladies of Dunans. So what we're looking at is the harvested area at the moment, and in the centre bottom of the screen is the track the forwarders created and then used to take out all of the timber that we harvested. I mean, there was some 7,000 tonnes I think it was in the end, and the idea was that we clear all of this and then we replant it. Now that's going to happen, the replanting is going to happen in the next 3 or 4 months, and the way it will work is a machine will come in, it will create mounds in all of this landscape, and then machines and or people will come in and plant the trees, and they will be basically planted over all of the areas that you can see have been felled and have bits of timber lying about. It's amazing, over the last year and a half we have seen significant greenery come up, such that the lines of stumps you can see there in the middle of the screen are relatively okay visually. I mean, it still seems to me to be there you go, it gets worse as you pan around, and apologies for the jerky flying skills. I'm not the best, it's not something I often do. So you'll also see a lot of areas where there hasn't been any harvest. Now, for example, here at the top left, that will remain as meadow, and the native woodland that you see, or native copse that you see top left, is going to be left. Around it will be planted oak and birch in all of these areas where we've got this brash. The brash is basically just going to rot down and eventually will become part of the humus, which will help grow our 100-year woodland. And actually now we're getting at just a bit of height, you can see quite how the ground has been left because of the harvesting. It's a fairly brutal process, to be honest, but needs to be because the huge trees. In fact, what we learned from the harvest was that the whole woodland was over mature, and we were actually told we were going to get 4,500 tonnes when it turned out to be 7,000. Here we're flying through an area just above the paddock at the back of the castle, and to the left there you can see some oaks which are fairly straggly, and the reason they're straggly is because for over 30 years they've been surrounded by the Sitka spruce. These smaller trees here are birches, and we'll fly through them, and then felled but too heavy to actually take are some very large logs. I'm hoping to get up there with a chainsaw and chop them up for firewood, as will this fallen tree here. Now that actually fell because of the clearance, the wind getting to it, and it was an old and diseased tree anyway. So there's a view back up the hill with the peak, which will also be forested in due course. And now I wanted to show you some overhead shots because it really gives you an idea of the mixture of vegetation that sits around the harvested areas. You can see that a lot of green has come back. Now some of it, we've already seen some examples in this video already, is rhododendron. And that's Rhododendron ponticum, which is classed as an invasive species and which we will have to remove. You're also seeing that bright green, those are ferns, and we also have some bracken. The bracken is not so good. The ferns are native to this landscape. And now you're seeing the grass area. That is self-seeded regeneration. And whilst there's some, you can see that there's not an awful lot of the regeneration. And again, more ferns. You're also seeing the depth of ravines that the runoff, the water, makes. There's a lot of rhododendrons there, bottom right, and all along that bank. Some of it's been cleared, but it does need all to come out, because what it does is it masks the ground story of any woodland and just takes over. Again, you've got a lot of debris from the harvest here, but then there were an awful lot of trees here, and even so there's still some growth coming through. If you'd walked through this bit of woodland when it was still standing, there would have been none of this growth on the ground. It's all come up in the last year and a half. It's quite extraordinary. And as we move further along, you'll start to see more grass. You'll also have been seeing tracks, and those are tracks made by sheep. Right, so this is the sort of same area looking uphill. Now, we're going to be planting this area with oak and birch, but on the hill it's going to be more of a highland birchwood, and we'll have downy birch and all sorts sitting up there, some hazel. But here we're looking for oak, which is going to give us the temperate rainforest and extend the oak triple SI, which is further down the glen. We're only about a few hundred metres from that. So we're trying to extend the sort of environment of that triple SI into this landscape. Now, you'll see self-seeded trees here and there, but because this has been grazed by sheep since, well, for years and years and years, decades, nothing else has come up apart from rashes and grass, and only where the tree has been lucky has it survived, which is, for example, that tree to the right there, silver birch. Actually, no, that's a rowan. So that's a self-seeded rowan. Now we're coming back into one of the commercial coops which has been harvested further up the hill, and you'll see some larger pines there. Now those will have been self-seeded. I think it's difficult to tell from this angle, but those will have come up in the last 100 years and will have been left when they planted the Sitka. In between you've got these native birch and rowan, and they give you an idea of what the rest of the hill is going to look like in the future. Again, you can see that bright green bank of shrubbery. That's ponticum, and what you can see what it does is it's trapping the native woodland, and it's covering the ground. And again, you've got another dob of them there. Now we're going to have to get rid of them as soon as possible to stop them spreading into our new woodland, because they just go. And then above we can see the hill that's going to be a birchwood plantation. All of that hill that you're now looking at is going to get planted, which is, I think, going to make such a beautiful woodland. And then there's a view up the glen northwards, and you can see it started to rain, so we're looking a bit dour. And across there, that's a commercial plantation with native woodland closer into the ravine, and then that's looking back down towards the castle. And here we are again, looking southward through the glen, across the hillside, and you can see these areas. To the left, we've got the plantations which have been harvested. In the middle, this is an area of ground which won't be planted unless we have trees sponsored. And then to the right again, we've got more areas where it's been harvested. As the drone curves in, we're starting to cross and come down towards the ravine, and you'll see there in the left-hand side some dark green foliage. That's bracken. We need to get rid of that. And there's also some rhododendron there. And then the brownie cover is rashes, so that's endemic. But in that grass and in that area are loads and loads of orchids. I mean, what's happened with the harvest is it's thrown up everything into the air for the local plants and plant life, which has meant that we're starting to see effects that we haven't seen before. So, for example, all of the ferns, but also the wildlife. So, as soon as we'd harvested the Sitka, Dunans and the policies around the castle were just full of squirrels. It's absolutely amazing. And we've now got squirrels in nests that much closer to the house than they've ever been before. And I've come across squirrel mothers carrying their kits down the drive, which has been lovely. You can see me standing there on the left with a dog wagging his tail, but we're now coming down over an area that's been cleared, and you can see how the watercourses incised deeply into the landscape because we get so much runoff. Our problem is, you can see there on the left a bank that's been undercut by a stream, and that is because that particular stream is carrying twice as much water than it should. When the Fletchers built the bridge and the drive and the access, they undergrounded one of the burns and then diverted that burn into this one below us now. It's created an issue which we are going to have to manage over the next few years, unless because otherwise it will cut back into the ground we're now flying over. Now as the drone turns to the right, you can see the Carl Glen River, which will in about 100 yards go under Dunans Bridge. And then if you look to the top middle, you start to see the drive. And if we go a bit further, the tower of the castle will suddenly appear. There we are. There's the tower of the castle. Gorgeous.